talk about the future of UK electronics and manufacturing and touch on STEM and industry advancements. Have a panel here of industry specialists. There is one slight change to the slide, but I'll let everybody explain that as we move down. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and then we will touch on several different topics that come up, and would love any audience participation, any questions that you have as well. So firstly, I'll pass the mic over to Laura.
Thank you, Claire. Morning, everybody. I'm Laura McBrown, Managing Director of G&B Electronics. We are a contract manufacturer specialising in the defence, aerospace and medical sectors, from PCB assembly through to box build, sort of mid volume and sort of scale up. So,
follow that. Hi, I'm Nigel Watts, and I've spent the last 40 years in this industry in sales and marketing, primarily for representation of semiconductor companies right across the world, and I look after the EMEA region. I have two prime interests. One's at the demand creation end with a company called Searching for Silicon, and at the obsolescent end, I've got a company called Trading Edge Technology, which is kind of apt. But yeah, pleasure to be here and delighted to answer any questions.
Hi, I'm Gavin. I'm the commercial manager at ASK Technology. We too are a PCB assembly company. We specialise in prototyping, fast turnaround kind of work, and we have a huge passion for apprenticeships and training youth and promoting electronics into education and securing the future of our industry.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Joe Whaley. I'm the Senior Manager of Business Development at Sony UK Technology Centre. Very much like the rest of the guys, we're also in contract manufacturing. We're probably most well known for the larger kind of scale volume manufacturing. So we have customers like Raspberry Pi, Sapura, who we ship in the kind of hundreds of thousands, if not millions a year and kind of products. So you've got a different kind of range of volume of manufacturers there.
So I'm Claire Saunders, What's New in Electronics. We are an industry hub for everything electronics, and we want to share news and updates from all over the world about what's happening. Obviously UK based, and have had many years in this sector and seen lots of different trends, but there's two things obviously that we always look at, and that is what's going to happen next in this industry. What are the next challenges that are coming along? We know as UK companies, we're always facing challenges in this sector. Manufacturing has always been sort of very low on the pile, if you like, when it comes to support. So we always have to push very hard to get anything from government or any support globally, I think. And we have an exceptional history. The talent that we have in the UK is fantastic, but we don't shout about it enough and we don't promote ourselves enough, in my opinion. And I'm sure everybody else has a different thought process or would like to comment on that. And as well as the challenges that we see, my other concern is who's going to take over next, because it is an aging generation in the industry. We're all getting older, and I'm sure many of us want to look at an exit plan. And we have a shortage of engineers. So how are we going to deal with that? So I'm going to ask you guys if you'd like to put your hand up, or whoever would like to start. Okay, Nigel.
Well, the bad news for the industry is I'm not going anywhere. I've been in it 45 years and I don't know what else to do. But more importantly, I set these businesses up only 14 months ago after a long spell on my own and then working for a couple of corporates. And one of the key points when we started was succession planning and also bringing a younger generation into the electronics industry. Because this industry, after I've been in it 45 years, I still consider it to be a startup. There's so much further to go. And there's a whole bunch of younger people that are fairly disaffected by traditional paths of, university, following a certain path. I've got two guys here today. They're both 18. They're running around the show. They're collecting business cards. They had a great big meeting with a tier one who will remain nameless. And they're buzzing, right? And I'll get them back to the office tomorrow. They'll have 50 business cards in their hand, and their job is to follow that all up. And they'll get far more out of that than they will about sitting in their classroom for another day. And I know that because that's exactly how I started in the industry with a little company called GEC, if anyone ever heard of that. And I just believe in that succession planning principle. I mean, I imagine in 10 years' time, I won't be moving as fast as I do today, but I still be around, and it's in here. I've got to give it to them for the next 30, 40 years, because this industry will be here for that long and beyond, and we need to fill the gap. And the best people to do that are us, all of us. Anybody?
I want to be like you when I grow up.
So do I.
You raised some really good points, and if we want to continue to invest in the future of this industry and carry on the great work that we're doing, it's currently estimated we need about 25,000 engineers to keep a cutting edge in this country, and we do some amazing work across a variety of industries. And to build on your point, Claire, we hide our light under a bushel, and we don't shout about what we do, and we wonder why we don't get support from the government and we don't get support from the schools and the colleges. But what are we doing as an industry to help promote our cause, our industry, our needs, and the massive opportunities that come with it? I mean, I've sat in schools and talked to kids, and they don't even realize there's a PCB inside their phone. They just think it's magic. So there's a lot more we can do, and I think collaboration between the various parts of the industry is key to getting the message out. We've got low volume here, we've got the medium volume specialists, CEMs, and then we've got the huge massive volume guys, and we've got the recruitment guys here. I mean, we should all be doing a lot more. There's design houses and all other kind of facets that can help us here. But yeah, there's a lot more work to be done, but the future is really, really bright.
So from kind of Sony side, there's been quite a few things that we've done recently that have actually been kind of really positive for us. So for many years, we've been doing both graduate and apprentice schemes. They've worked really, really well for us. So I was just saying to Paul, we opened up our apprenticeship scheme to move outside of just engineering. So we introduced kind of like business support roles as well. So some people in supply chain, some people in finance, and they've been some really good ways of getting people in without the burden of like the debt that comes with university as well. The second thing is we introduced a schools program back in about 2014. So this is completely free for anyone who's got any kids and they want to come down. They get to see the factory, and they can do one of 6 different schools programs, and that is engaging kids all the way from about 6 to 7 all the way up to 18. And they get to code and program on a Raspberry Pi, or they get to come and use some of the Sony equipment and try and do like a bit of media training in the day. And what we didn't realize was going to happen is we've now had full circle moments where we've had people that have come in at 6, 7, 9, and have now become operators, team leaders, come into the engineering apprenticeship roles, which is really great, but also makes me feel really old at the same time because I've only been there about 10, 11 years. So to see that full circle. So it's been a really good channel for us. I would sort of say, like, have a think about what you have around you and what you can do to kind of open your kind of doors as much as you can to kind of engage that local community as well.
Yeah, I don't think you have to go to many electronics or manufacturing events before the subject of skills gets onto the top of everyone's agenda. That next generation coming through and how we're going to recruit for the future is up there with one of the #1 challenges that we all face on a regular basis. And I think, we do a lot of work with schools and getting kids in for work experience, and they're talking about, engineering, and there's a passion for them to do more in that space, but they don't really know what engineering is. They don't really know what kind of opportunities are open to them. What does that look like? What are all the choices that they have that they can make and get into? So we've been quite involved in getting involved with National Manufacturing Day. For those of you that don't know, it's the third Thursday in September, where companies are encouraged to open their doors to local schools, children's scout groups, in order to sort of really give them an introduction to what it is that they do, so that we can share what's going on behind all the doors of these corrugated buildings that fill all the industrial estates up and down the country. So for us, we print the circuit boards. So we get the kids to come in. They get their kits. They go into stores and pick their own kit. We get them to put together a circuit board. They take it through to inspection and have a look at it and see whether they've built it right. Take it up to test and see if it works. Sometimes there's a little bit of fixing that goes on when they're not looking. And then they get to take it home. And they absolutely love doing that hands-on stuff. When we go to careers fairs and showing the hands-on stuff, they really enjoy doing something that they can get involved, touch and feel, and really sort of experience. So, we like to do a lot of that kind of thing, just opening their eyes. And I think the schools are so inundated with the fact that they are stretched. Just trying to get the kids to come into school seems to be their main challenge. So how we can then work with schools and open our doors and try and reach in, because we're all talking to the converted. We know how great our industry is, but how do we share that? And to your point, Claire, raise the profile around doing that. So, definitely more to get involved with, and the kids, I think if we invite them, they'll come. So,
and do we think that we're hitting these people or these children at the right time? Because I know there's lots of different things that happen out in industry, and we're trying to encourage people. But is it at college level, or do we need to start when they're much younger? I mean, like you said, some people don't know that there's a printed circuit board inside a phone. But every single child, everybody lives on their phone. They've got all sorts of different gadgets. They could be the person behind designing the next gadget that they're working with, but I don't think they understand that. So are we leaving it too late?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, Claire. And certainly we go to a lot of the high schools, and we try and sort of capture them there and capture their imagination there. We all remember being angry teenagers, or maybe some of us do, but your inquisitiveness at that age and your learning is so high, and yet we're probably leaving it until the later years. And I think this myth about degrees and 90% of jobs we can train people, right? You don't need to go and do a degree. We've got some great apprentices that are going to be some amazing engineers, and they're not having to go to rack up a lot of debt and try and find their way through the education system and God knows what else out there. But yeah, we should certainly be more active at a younger age, and potentially primary schools. I mean, what Laura does is brilliant. She gets them in to make boards, and she puts photos and videos out there, and just to see the kids engaging with it. And one of the great side effects of working with the youth is they also have some great ideas. Just because we've been doing it this way for 40 odd years or whatever doesn't mean it's right. And it's great to see them have a positive effect on everyone around them, and the skills it brings out in other people, the mentoring skills and leadership skills. I've seen people working with the apprentices and seen sides of them that I didn't think I'd ever see. So yeah, sorry, I meandered a little bit there, but yeah, there's a lot more we could be doing, and even getting the apprentices into the schools, which we've started doing in the past 6 months. We've seen a massive more uptake and interest when they see people of a similar age and of varying backgrounds coming in and talking to them. It's been a real great journey, but a lot more of that, please. Yes.
Yeah, so I just add to that. So when we do the school programs, we go from 6 all the way up to 18. So we've kind of done this age range. I think the other thing that we've seen that's been kind of really beneficial for us is partnering with different entities. So we actually partner with the Ospreys rugby team, for example. So we actually are using the kids who are naturally inclined to say sports, to do a kind of sports and tech hybrid. And obviously there's a natural connection, with Sony and sports and tech anyway. So kind of finding their natural instincts and then kind of pulling them in as well, just to kind of open them up to say, there are other things you can look at as well, and kind of doing those in collaboration. So sustainability, cybersecurity, we do a forest schools program as well, right? So yeah, depending on what the kind of kids naturally like, we try and kind of build programs around other things that aren't purely just tech, just to try and, capture that other bit of engagement as well.
My two guys have just arrived. Grab a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alfie and Kai. Kai's got lunch. Well done. Anybody remember COVID? Yeah. What were we doing in COVID? Not very much, no. One thing we weren't doing, we're building cars, right? So, and the reason I mention that is that people that were in the queue for a car were going to their local sales showroom, and the salesman was pretty much primed to say, there's a reason you're not getting your car, because there aren't any semiconductors anywhere. No one knew what a semiconductor was pre-COVID. Nobody. Most people do now because of an event. And what I'm alluding to is slightly tangential, but if we can spread the word about what this is, this industry of ours, and pass it through people like Alfie and Kai, and there'll be more of them as hopefully we go through this year and next, spreading the word of what this industry really is and what it means to people. And I think AI is going to have a major part to play in it. But I'm not being political when I say this. This country needs a catalyst to drive it forward again. We had the Industrial Revolution. I wasn't around. I don't think you were either. We certainly benefited from the effects of the Industrial Revolution. We need something like it now as the next catalyst to drive it forward. And guess what? I think electronics is exactly what it is and where it needs to be going forward, combined with other things, because it can't do it on its own. But there's a huge opportunity for the younger generation to build, manifest, and grow their careers. And it's our responsibility to introduce them to it.
Yeah, and I think the money is there. You know, I think the government collects best part of 800 million from the apprenticeship levy, and barely any of that is spent on apprenticeships. So, you know, the call to the government to make sure that, you know, they use that money for what it is being collected for and invest in our young people of the future, provide the education and the facilities to enable us to get the engineers that we need.
And Nigel, obviously you mentioned AI. It's a buzz in every single sector that we work in. And young people are very interested in AI and to find out how they can become the next multimillionaire online, because that's sort of a process that people want to go into. And we need to make our industry more sexy. And I think that's the challenging bit, because, you know, you're not going to be an influencer in the electronics market. You could be, but that's not, you know, there are a lot of people who want to be influencers. That's the kind of buzz thing to do. So let's work out how to make our industry sexy, because it really is. I mean, you know, we are behind everything that's in every single thing that we do. So yeah, how do we do that?
Are you going?
Yeah, well, you can go. You go first.
Okay. Because actually, in our little organisation, we've adopted AI. We've got a system called Identif AI. So it's identification, but shortened to Identify AI. And as part of what we do in this thing called demand creation, where we sell on behalf of semiconductor companies, and we try and get into the grassroots of engineering to convince them to take the product. Gone are the days where young sales guys like me, if you needed a big customer, you looked at a big building with a big car park, because they did everything in the building and they all drove to work. Easy identification. With the global supply chain now rampant, and the fact that we've got hybrid working, most people aren't in the office more than 3 days a week. Many companies that are of considerable size are of low headcount. So even trying to find the right people at the right time has become difficult. So what do young sales guys like Kai and Alfie do when it says, well, who do you know in that customer? Well, we don't even know where the customer is. Things like AI can help us identify how we can get to that customer, develop the relationship, not in the way we used to, which was very much peer-to-peer, face-to-face. Meetings are hard to come by now. You've got to find other influencing ways of finding those customers in ways that the younger generation are willing to be approached by. And it's not the face-to-face knocking on the door. Have you heard of telephobia? It was on the news the other day. Young people are not scared, but they don't like communication on the phone. These two do, because it's their job. But so if they're not going to pick up the phone, and you find it an awful lot more these days. I mean, the human race is we're very creative. The telephone answering machine was designed for what purpose? Yeah, so you didn't miss anything. You know, you nipped off to the loo, or you went down to the cafeteria, and you didn't miss that important phone call. Within months of introduction, the telephone answering machine became the filter. You listened to all the calls coming in and decided which ones you wanted to talk to. So the human race is a very creative thing. AI is a very creative thing, and there's a huge amount we can use it for our benefit. A lot of people are worried about it because they don't understand it. But I'll give it the clues in the name. It's artificial intelligence. It doesn't possess rationality. It hasn't got emotion. And as long as we've got those two things and it doesn't, we're in control. Anybody else?
No, that is a really good point. I mean, you know, you go to the schools and the colleges, and it's almost become a bit of an excuse, AI, and you hear the kids say, "Well, what's the point of me doing that job or taking that career because it's AI?" And you know, perception and reality are always two different things. AI is a tool, as you're quite rightly saying, and you know, we're in charge of that tool, and how we use it and how we apply that still needs those amazing soft skills, that creativity, that problem solving, you know, that inventiveness, all those amazing things that this industry has in abundance. And yeah, that's really interesting, I think, to talk about.
So I think the question was, how do we make it more interesting and more appealing, right? So I don't think there's a one fixed solution. I think there's a lot of the things that, you know, everyone said today about, you know, kind of opening your doors and actually showing people what manufacturing is and all the various different types. There's huge amounts of, you know, we're talking about electronics, but manufacturing is not just electronics. There's a whole host of different types in the UK. But I think there's probably a perception that if you go to manufacturing, it's probably going to be like dirty, dark. It's going to be grimy. It's not going to be interesting. You're going to come home, you're going to smell, and that's simply not the case. You know, we have a class 1000 clean room on site, so people have to be obviously completely clean and they're fully suited for when they need to do. There's so many different facets of what you can do, and even in manufacturing or electronics, there's still, you know, creative roles, commercial roles. There's all these other areas as well that support the whole infrastructure. So I think it's, again, getting open and saying, look, it is here, it's alive, it exists, and it's thriving, really. But also going, yeah, there are a whole host of routes you can do. I never thought that, you know, when I was in school, when I was in university, I never thought I was going to end up in this kind of position. And it's great. It's never, every day is always different. And you can't really say that. And COVID has kind of shown, it's kind of brought, you know, this to the forefront. But yeah, I think, again, just breaking down so people can understand what it is and what they physically interact with. Because they're so used to just opening a laptop or just getting something up on a tablet, but not understanding how and where it comes from. And they're really surprised once they find out, oh, you can do that in the UK, or, you know, they just assume everything is in the Far East. So yeah, I think more and more of the stuff that we've all kind of talked about today, really.
So I think, yes, there's a definite challenge in terms of how we make it more attractive and sexy, and that really is a hard one, because we're relying on people that don't know about the industry to take the time to try and get into that. So I think, you know, all that marketing piece about how we do what we do, going back to National Manufacturing Day, and how we sort of link that to the AI, because that's something that is almost like a bridging gap between what the kids know now and things that they feel comfortable with, and the next steps off the back of that, which is then getting into the hardware and how you use the software and the tech and the AI to develop manufacturing processes, be more efficient with things. So I think it's just trying to find a roadmap, a journey that we can take the kids on that is exciting and interesting, and diverse. I think there's more we could do around when we advertise our industry. We roll out Formula One cars, fighter jets, the Bloodhound comes out, and I think there is a little bit more diversity that we could use around how we encourage people into the industry and get them to think creatively. A breast scanner would be a great example. I'm fairly confident that anyone who ever been through the experience of a breast scanner, the engineer or team of engineers that developed that, I possibly have never seen a breast. So I suspect that actually bringing some more diversity and more women and giving more challenges that are more diverse to a larger group would engage our younger generation to think differently, and maybe we just need to look at our marketing a little bit more.
Thank you. And Paul, you mentioned obviously that, you know, there's quite a significant shortage of engineers. 25,000 is quite a big number. So there's an opportunity there to find these people, but also to tell them that, like Nigel said, like we all know, this industry is going nowhere. You know, it's going forward, it's stronger. AI automation will change the way the shop floor runs. There will be a change in personnel, how many people are on the shop floor, but they're still going to need people. For AI, you need to teach AI. AI needs our knowledge to be able to help everybody else. It's a tool. So yes, there may be different job roles. There may be changes. Things might not look the same as they did. Well, they don't look the same as they did 20 years ago now. But it's definitely not going away. So I don't think people should be scared of looking into this as an opportunity, and thinking very much about the positivities. And although I started saying, you know, this industry's always struggled and it's always been pushed down, there are still so many opportunities. We're seeing reshoring. We're seeing a lot of new companies starting out. You know, you mentioned, you know, there's low volume happening all the time. So that means there's innovation, and this country is full of innovation.
Yeah, I think we're sometimes a little bit too keen to sell off what it is we've done too early. And I think, you know, really growing the investments and the developments we have in this country is a key thing. I'm going to touch on leadership a little bit, if I may, because I think in terms of trying to get those next generation of engineers through and into the industry, and to your point, I think COVID drew a little bit of a line in the sand, and I think the way that, you know, we perhaps, you know, grew up is quite different to how young people are today. So if I think back to my childhood, we get to the summer holidays and mum would be like, get out of the house, you're not messing up my house. And you didn't live near anybody that you went to school with. And we didn't have phones to contact them. So you'd have to go out and find some other children to play with. So you didn't have to approach said children and say, right, okay, right, let's meet up tomorrow. So you had to get there on time, otherwise they would all be gone, you'd have no one to play with all day. Once you've met up, you've got to decide what it is you're going to do all day. So who's going to be on which team, who's going to bring the football. We're going to organise ourselves into teams. We're all going to have our positions, or we're going to find a game to play. The ball's going to go over someone's fence, and somebody's got to knock on a door that they don't know and ask for the ball back. Or somebody's got to do a bit of breaking and entering while everyone else keeps watch. So we built up skill sets around meeting ups, imagination, creativity, teamwork, those kind of skills that are so natural for us because that was our childhood, but is very different now. So the generation coming through now, they've not been chucked out of the house. They do a lot online. They're more familiar with the AI. They will be better at teaching us how to utilise the AI skills and technology. They are, I think the population has doubled since I've been born, so they are 50% of our customers in the population, and they will work out how to sell to each other. So there is a challenge for us to, from a leadership point of view, understand how we engage with that next generation in order to motivate them, interest them, lead them, and keep them interested, because every 8 seconds there is a new thing to look at.
Beautifully put, I think. Well done. 25,000 engineers. That's a lot of people. How do you attract them? All right, we're in a world of corporate finance, money being made everywhere, trillions of dollars on the stock exchange, and you want to attract design engineers at A level and convince them that's a career path for them. It's not easy. But what I would say is this: if we go back far enough, we led the world in engineering. I mean, we started the Industrial Revolution, for God's sake. And there's enough ingenuity, innovation, and root in this country to do it again. But there's got to be a motivation. We've got to understand what an engineer is going to value and what they're going to need. And we've got to work far harder than we have now, and certainly in the past 15 to 20 years, to bring them back and develop them where we've lost so many engineers to other parts of the world. I mean, I've been out to Silicon Valley more times than I can possibly imagine. And certainly in the earlier days, the number of English accents, it was like being in my backyard. And the reason they were there, they were valued and they were respected, and that era has gone past in this country for some time now. We've got to bring that back, and whether it be exhibitions like this, forums, even lobbying governments, although I think that can take far too long, we've got to put some energy into this if we want it to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, it's just the soft skills. It comes up time and time again when we go to the schools and the colleges, and you know, we almost churn these kids out. Yeah, you've got English, you've got maths, great stuff, get on with your life kind of thing, and we've forgotten that they're individuals and they're people, and they have their own interests and hobbies and needs and wants and goals, and and we don't listen to them. I think that's a big problem, and we don't share success easily. I don't know if that's a British thing or an engineering thing or both. But yeah, we could do with a lot more good news sharing, and this is my collaboration point that I keep banging on about, is we need to talk more to each other and share our success stories. Laura and I speak quite regularly about what we're doing with our younger generation and how they're getting on, but that's just us two talking. I mean, we're as guilty of it as well, and I'm sure by having these open discussions, we will encourage more of that. But yeah, there needs to be a wider discussion with the education system involved as well, and what we want as businesses from our schools, because we're still training kids as they were in the 1950s, 1850s. Things have changed. Things do change. And
you look good for your age.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I'm 93. You have the far better tan. But yeah, we need to be thinking very differently about solving our problems nowadays. And yeah, it's a lot different than it was. Things change. We've created a generation that fears change, and we need to change that.
I think, yeah, soft skills are also really important. And I think engineering, soft skills don't naturally always go together at the same time. And I was lucky enough that I played a lot of sports when I was a younger kid, and a lot of those were like group sports as well. So I think it's similar kind of concept, right? When you come together as a team, there's a clear achievement, there's a clear thing or a clear outcome that you want, and you're kind of trying to work towards. So again, trying to build that into the educational system, yeah, easy to say again, but actually the actuality of trying to do something like that is also, very, very difficult. So I think, yeah, again, I'm not sure how necessarily how the school system could bring that in, but that would probably be one thing as well from our side that we see.
So obviously we're not going to have any solutions to the questions that we're asking, but we have had a very good discussion and covered some good topics. It would be really interesting to get any feedback from anybody in the audience about your experiences. I feel so sorry for you guys. You brought your chips in, and which have gone cold, and Nigel keeps pointing at you. But what's made you guys want to come into engineering, into manufacturing? Any questions or anything? Thank you.
I'm going to ask the gender diversity question. So we touched on it briefly, but I'm aware of the statistics of how many female engineers and how the diversity isn't matched up in this industry. What are we doing to improve that side of it specifically? It's a bit of a soapbox for me.
No, and I get it. And as somebody who's been in the industry for 30 years, when particularly at trade shows, I think it's noticeable. When you can see everybody getting off the bus and there's maybe one outfit that's not grey and not a suit, and you're thinking, okay, I'm a woman here, hello, where's my friends? And there hasn't been many, but I have seen a lot more women coming into industry. There's nowhere near the level of equality that there should be. But you're right, but from my point of view, I think it's all about education, because immediately, as soon as anybody says engineering, manufacturing, electronics, everyone says, that's for my son, my daughter's going to go and do marketing. Or if you're in a meeting, who wants to take the notes? Or make the tea, yeah. I refuse to make tea, but yes, that's. I think we've all got opinions on that, being women in industry. But it would be also nice. I'll pass to Laura, but then get the guys' opinions as well.
Yeah, I think on the whole, my experience of our industry is that there's an unconscious bias because there just aren't enough females in there to change that. I think there is an appetite in the industry. Everybody wants to get more women into it, champion more women. But it comes back to your question earlier. We're just not doing it. It's just not happening. I sort of go back to how we're marketing ourselves in the industry, in terms of why. It's probably fair to say that women tend to go into more caring type roles, teaching, nursing, that sort of thing, because we're genetically programmed to take care of children, or some of us anyway, maybe not all of us, myself included. And I think as a result of that, we've got to find some marketing that taps into that kind of natural feeling of how women feel about stuff. And I go back to the breast scanner. You know, most of us have got family members that have been touched by that in some way, shape or form. And I think if we can tap into that caring nature that women tend to have in terms of an engineering challenge to solve that problem, I don't think anyone's ever gone to school and gone into engineering and gone, right, imagine how are we going to make a lipstick? You know, nobody asks that question. There's not, you know, so there isn't enough female type products that are marketed through the education system and why we'd want to get into these different industries. And I think we need to probably tap into more of those industries and get them to sort of link into the engineering element of what it is they're doing just a little bit more to help us more normalize that and create those role models for our industry that is not just women in a men's world. So
I think to highlight that, if you think about it, right, how many women run large engineering manufacturing companies that you ever see on the TV? It's always a guy probably slightly over 50, probably eaten too much the night before, the hair's going grey, and you can see the effect of time. And yet you go into the fashion industry, which is predominantly women-led from that point of view. Most of the CEOs are guys, and sold as such. And a lot of the fashion designers historically have been guys, far less on the engineering side. And I think for some reason, yeah. I think we know the history of the engineer and the fact that, I mean, let's face it, up until, what would we say, 50 years ago, 90% of the workforce in that respect was male. Okay, so it's taken a while to go through. I don't believe in any way, shape or form there are enough women at senior level management across not just our industry, but industry in general. You know, I don't know what the stat is, but on the average, if 4 out of 10, I think it's 4 out of 10 or 3 out of 10 boardroom members are female. Right, that's unacceptable in this day and age. But and I don't want to be controversial when I say that. When I say this, it's not just about the number; it's about the quality of the individual for the job and the role. Okay, and there are you've got to make sure your board is compromised. Sorry, not compromised. That'd be a terrible thing to do. Comprised of the right people in the right roles for the right function. And if that was 8 out of 10 one way for the right reason, great. If it's 8 out of 10 the other way, but if you could find that balance, I think when we could strive for that, I think it'd be a really good thing to do.
Brilliant question. Thank you for answering it. It's one. I do a few of these panels locally, and it's one that comes up, and I know it is such a brilliant, pertinent question, and. You know, it goes back to my earlier point. We don't treat people as individuals. And I go to schools, and actually the biggest demographic that comes up to our stand and asks about what we do is young women. And yet, do I ever see a CV from them? No. And when I talk to the teachers, I hear things that I probably would have heard back in my day, which is, well, it's easier to put them on childcare courses or healthcare courses. Their friends are doing it. It's what their parents did. And it's, you know, it's this tradition breaking thing we've got to get away from and treat people as individuals. We're not all the same. You know, like a football team or a rugby team or any team, you know, everybody has their place to play on the pitch. And we've completely forgotten that. But these strange old traditions still exist, and that is really shocking. So for me, I think, yeah, there needs to be some good, strong talks with the education system about this stereotyping, quite frankly, and it needs to be broken as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I think it's an age-old question, right? And it's not just electronics; it's in certain other areas as well. From kind of the kind of level and people that we see coming through when they come onto our site, at least when they come in and do the schools programs, we can see an almost equal level, and actually I'd probably say a higher level of engagement from the females when they are doing the coding and programming on like Raspberry Pis, right? And actually they kind of really thrive at that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting to see. So I think, and actually as years go on, we're starting to see a bit more of a shift now. It was probably a 9-to-1 ratio, so 90 to 10% ratio, but that's now starting to kind of, you know, slowly notch away and kind of increase. So I think there's going to be a natural thing, and I'm kind of optimistically positive that I think we'll get to that point now where we'll get to 30, 40 and then 50%. And I think it's just going to be a time thing. What's interesting, because I've been to see some of the other factories that we have them all throughout the world. In places like Thailand, it's almost 50-50, and in fact, in some cases, when it comes to management and engineering, it's a higher ratio of females to males. So I think there is clear kind of like local regions that seem to be really successful at this. And I think we need to go and explore and maybe realize we're not the best at that in terms of that full integration or making that support for them, and understand how, do the whole kind of best practice sharing, understand why is it so much more successful there. But on top of that, it's other things as well. It's LGBTQ people as well in this industry, not massively representative, BAME as well. So Black, Asian, Middle East, so there's a whole host of other sectors as well that I think, we just need to look at, just look around the room, and it's statistically it's in that. So I think, again, being as open and, forthcoming as we can, encouraging that at the grassroots, and, as time goes on, naturally that will change. It's just going to take time, I think, unfortunately. I don't think, again, there's a one turn or one key solution just to make it happen overnight, which would be lovely to see, but yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Any other questions? Anybody like to speak? Any questions? No? Any opinions on anything that have been covered that we haven't said, or any? No? Okay. Guys, anything else that any of you would like to add about the future? What's next? What's the next big thing? What do we got to look forward to? Because we have to look forward.
We do. Oh gosh. Okay, well that is quite a difficult question to go far first on. Things to look forward to. I think there's a lot to look forward to, actually. I think I see more and more opportunity with AI. I see more and more passion in the industry for encouragement of young people. I see more and more companies reaching out to schools and environments that, more than we sort of did before. And, the likes of the Sonys of this world and Paul's business as well, doing so much with apprenticeships and local colleges and stuff. So I really think that the appetite is there. So I do think it's exciting. It's no doubt going to be a challenge. And I think there is a lot that our next generation can do to help us grab the nettle and understand AI and how we can use that. Because I think, myself included, a lot of us that have been in the business in the world for a long time understand we need AI, but we don't really know how to utilize that, how to control it, how to make sure that what it's telling us is correct, how to get the data sets right, and how to make sure from a cybersecurity point of view we're not sharing anything with that we shouldn't be. So I think there's a whole opportunity around that I think our next generation can help us embrace, and I'm excited to see what that will look like. So
thanks. A large part of today has been talking about bringing the younger generation into our industry. So what can we look forward to? How about this room in 25 years' time being full of people that are between 35 and 40 and 45, rather than what will be then, which is somewhere between 80 and 95, and ramp access will be mandatory. And that is something to look forward to. Let's get young people involved in it. And we talk about it, and a lot of people talk about it, but we're clearly still not doing it. Look around here. So in 25 years' time, let's make sure it happens. Change is the only constant. And the rate of change in our world is accelerating, probably accelerating beyond human comprehension in some respects. But let's harness this now. Let's take an action from here and say, right, okay, 10% more people next year will be under the age of 30 in this room. All right, or in 20 years' time, it will be 40% more, because we're not going to be around. I mean, I'll be about 85 years old in 20 years' time, and I love this industry, and I'm not going to give up. But I'm not sure I want to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to drive to Farnborough. Serious note, we've got to get people in at a much younger age. Let's look forward to the next generation of the electronics industry, because the one that I lived in, the one I'm living in now, it's been a blast. It's been fantastic, and it's going to get better.
Just going back a bit, 25,000 engineering vacancies. You're 3 times more likely to be unemployed if you're under the age of 25. It's getting near 15% now, the unemployment rate, according to the government's latest statistics. That's wrong. That's unacceptable. You know, we've got a glut of people doing childcare and my favourite hairdressing, but we've got this massive shortage of engineers, and a big thing that I think we've forgotten to embrace is teaching people to have transferable skills and being able to move across industries and having options. And I think that's something that I think reflects the opportunities that this industry and this country and business has created, and that is the bright future for me.
I would say from kind of the conversations we've been having with people, the AI engineering roles, the things that come to the forefront. I think we've had a lot of conversations about people actually looking at the UK as a viable option for manufacturing. And actually, you've got 3 people in the panel, so come and see all of our different stands at the end of this to come and talk about that. So I think there's a real kind of opportunity now about onshoring or reshoring. I think we had some inquiries, we had some sort of demand, post COVID, and everyone was kind of like, we must bring this back to the UK. We can't be 5 weeks away by sea or wherever you get it from. We didn't really see a kind of like genuine move then after that point, and it was almost like COVID was forgotten, and then that was fixed. That was a one-time blip, but it'll be something else in the future. You don't know what it is. If I did, then I'd be in a different job, and I'd be on the beach in Bahamas or something, right? But yeah, so I think now we've got, with all the stuff that's going on, I think, and the kind of demands and the complexity and the security on some of the things that needs to happen, I think there's a real opportunity for the UK to shine in terms of that manufacturing. So that's the thing I think I'm most hopeful for and looking forward to, outside of the kind of how AI is going to change the manufacturing process, because that will happen. I might not be leading it, but I'm sure it will happen. I think that from what I can see, that's what I was looking forward to.
Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. And I'd also like to wrap up with the fact that as What's New in Electronics, we travel around the world and we speak to people in all different regions and find out what their challenges are, find out what their opportunities are. And wherever I go, I'm incredibly proud to be British, and that the fact that the UK is still seen as a shining star around the world, and it's related to quality, it's related to being good, being innovative, yeah, and that's something that, as I say, I'm incredibly proud to be able to say that I'm part of. And as you can hear from everybody on this panel, they've all had a very good life in this industry. It is challenging, but it's also very, very rewarding, and it's full of fabulous people, and I hope that it continues to thrive, and that we've given you all a little bit of an insight, and you can help spread the word and get lots more people involved. So thank you all very much, and thanks for joining us, everyone. Thank you.